So today I wanted to talk to you about a few really important points for improving your body image. So the next Thursday therapy, which comes out tomorrow, we did a whole video talking about body image and relationships. So you're going to get the full video tomorrow. If not, I've given you a link if you're not signed up for our videos, so you can sign up and get the full video tomorrow. But in answering these questions on body image and relationships, I kind of, we got to raising a few really important points that I think people need to know before they improve their body image. Just really handy things to do to help you improve your body image. So I thought I'd just share these with you now. And of course, always really welcome your comments and just what your experience is of what I'm saying. Hello, Brenda. Okay, so the first point, and this is where I think we really get stuck, is that body image is actually more about what's going on up here than what's going on out here. We often, if we want to improve our body image, the first thing that we think of doing is changing the way that we look. And that's the most common thing we do, but it's actually, if we look at most people's attempts to do that, change your body to feel better in your body, it doesn't tend to work much in the long term. And that's because of this popular myth that changing your body is the best way to improve your body image. So let me give you a few examples of that. Probably the best example for me is, since I've developed a little bit of a public kind of figure and people know me as the weight psych, I get kind of Instagram influencers or Instagram models messaging me kind of out of the blue. They contact me and they tell me these really terrible stories about their disordered eating and their body preoccupation and how much they hate the way they look. And then I can see these same Instagram influencers, and on the same day as they message me, they've got a nice selfie and they might have like the six-pack or like the peach bum, and they kind of look great. But for me, that's this perfect example of the external portrayal of the thin ideal. If you get to look like this, you'll feel great about your body, versus the internal reality of these people. So it's almost like we're sold a lie that's propagated by the weight loss industry that to feel good in your body, you need to lose weight, which is obviously very, very powerful marketing. Hey, Wendy, but it's not necessarily true. And counter that, we can sort of see lots of examples of people who are, plus size models and body positive advocates who have, all sorts of shapes and sizes, including bigger people, and they feel quite good in their body. The other thing that really tells me that body image is in your mind more than it is in your body is that we have research from programs in sort of middle-aged women who are just all shapes and sizes, and we can do sort of mindset work to help them feel more comfortable in their skin, to help them let go of criticism, to help them stop comparing, to help them stop doing avoidance rituals like not going to the beach or not going to that party because they feel like they're too fat, and really change their whole mindset, the way they feel and their actions as related to their experience of their body. We can do all of that, just body image work. And at the end of that work, people feel a lot better about their body. So their body image gets better. They're less dissatisfied. They avoid things less. They feel better. They're less preoccupied with their looks. So all of these body image variables improve, but they don't actually lose weight. So that sort of says to me, in that short period of time, that says to me that your body image is actually much more up here. And that's actually what we do in our Love Your Body Healthy program, is we're focusing really on boosting your body image. Because when you boost your body image, you actually end up taking better care of yourself anyway. And then if you get weight loss as a result of that, it's kind of like a bonus. Gabby said, the fitness industry is rife with trainers and fitness models who have borderline eating disorders, but they will never tell their clients or the general public. However, it doesn't stop them from selling highly restrictive meal plans. I completely agree with you, Gabby. Agree with you 100%. And for me, I suppose, as a psychologist, it's quite easy for me to be compassionate with my clients. But I find it sometimes hard to do with these people who are not necessarily my clients, because I think, you know what, you're going down a really nasty rabbit hole here. So I get that you're a victim of this, this mindset, but also you're perpetrating it on a lot of other people as well. So you're sort of dragging a whole bunch of people down with you. And some of these people have 80,000, 140,000 Instagram followers who are all sort of, they're pulling people into these restrictive kind of meal plans. So I completely agree with what you're saying, Gabby. And that's, I suppose, the next point that I wanted to bring up with you is that we are actually, pretty much all of us, we are victims of an environment that stigmatizes fatness and idealizes thinness, but also a lot of us are propagators of those same body image issues at the same time. A really good example of this is I'm very interested in people's relationships, because I did my research in psychosocial factors and weight management. And one thing that I see with a lot of people these days is how body image affects dating. And on one side, it's really hard for some of my clients who are sort of victims of that weight bias. They're not the thinnest people in the world, so they find that guys that they like are not necessarily as attracted to them. But at the same time, often when we look into it, they're the perpetrators of the same weight bias on other people. So when I look at them and I say, so what sort of guys are we looking at attracting here? They don't want fat people themselves. And you think, oh, that's sort of, you're a victim of this mindset, but also a perpetrator. And that's why I think it's so important for us to work on body image issues for our own sake, but also for the sake of our loved ones, our siblings, our family, definitely, for mums, definitely their daughters, but also sort of society more in general. I think that is the way that things are going to change. We're going to get a broader societal changes. And with, size diverse communities, the health at every size movement, fat activism, and everyone has all different thoughts about that, and you can sort of see where you fit and what you believe. I think that's a positive movement for sure. There are sort of countless examples of how we sort of become victims of this weight bias, but also perpetrators of it. For example, I was talking with someone recently who felt like her weight and her size impacted her ability to get a job. And let's say that it did. Let's say she was the best candidate for the job. I think, well, she's then a victim of size discrimination. But I also look at her potential employer and think they're also a victim, because as well as being the perpetrator of weight discrimination, they're becoming the victim because they're not necessarily always getting the right people or the best people for the job. So what do I think that means? I think it means that we need to have compassion for ourselves, because a lot of us, we are victims of this as well as perpetrators. And I just think it highlights the importance of this, to work on this for ourselves, but for kind of society in general. Jen asks, how do you address this with a health professional doctor where they try to blame every medical condition on your weight? Yeah, Jen, that is an awesome question, because there is research that while weight stigma is very harmful, it is propagated by a lot of health professionals, including health professionals that specialise in the weight management field. So I think it's important to have the discussion. If you look at the Health at Every Size website, and I'll provide the link to you in the comments there. I think it's Haes.org. There are actually letters that you can give to your doctor about treating the whole person and not just treating the weight, because of course, doctors are, trained in that medical model. Their training leads to them to naturally zoom in on the scales and sometimes forget the factors. I'm actually doing a lot of work with GPs in Australia and finding that they're surprisingly receptive to these sort of more weight inclusive or weight neutral ideas than I would have expected them to be. And so that's a pleasant surprise for me, and I think we can sort of take solace in that, because I speak to a lot of people who are frustrated with the way that their GPs deal with them as people who are living in bigger bodies. But when I talk to the GPs, they're also as frustrated with the current kind of approach, the current paradigm. They're sort of saying, I want to help this person become healthier, but I don't really have the time to do it. I don't feel like I have the expertise to do it, and I'm going to suggest some simple diet and exercise, like, eat less fat or less sugar and exercise more, and then I know that in 6 months the person's going to come back and nothing will be done. So I think that the good news is that doctors are just as frustrated as their patients with this paradigm, and so they're probably more open to change. I do think at the same time that it's probably, there'll be a lot of doctors that you may not be able to have those conversations with. So I'd encourage you to have the conversation. Maybe look at some of those Health at Every Size resources so you can give something to your doctor for them to kind of reflect on. But if the doctor isn't very weight centric, and really you can sense that they're not going to be open to that, I think, for me, it's someone like me, it's my job to help train health professionals. And that's something that I love doing. For you, it could be your job, but you don't necessarily need to be a size diversity ambassador. You just need to get the best medical treatment. So it might be a matter of actually switching your medical practitioner. That probably leads me to my third point, is that, those doctors, for example, it's very unlikely that they're bad people or that they don't respect you, that we're actually all products of this environment that idealizes thinness and stigmatizes fatness. And so we grow up with this weight bias in us, and there's great research to show from this test that we can do. It's called the implicit associations test, and what it does is it measures not what we say about weight bias, but how we think using these really interesting reaction time experiments. And what it tells us is that we're actually intrinsically more likely to pair the word fat with bad rather than good. We're more likely to pair the word thin with good rather than bad. That's quicker for our brains to do it. It makes more sense to us. And unfortunately, the biases against fat people is that they're more likely to be seen as bad, they're more likely to be seen as lazy, and they're more likely to be seen as stupid. Now, this can be pretty depressing information, but for me, I'm an eternal optimist, and I believe that real optimism is grounded in the truth and in understanding. And if we can understand about ourselves, so in my sessions I think about, I'm naturally going to have a weight bias, and also my client is, and we need to be mindful of that natural tendency. And when we're mindful of it, then we can start to work with it, we can start to diffuse it, and we can start to change it. So I suppose that's a big note, to have compassion for yourself, because you probably do have those same weight biases as your health professionals and maybe people around you who you're criticizing for having that weight stigma. But also to have compassion for other people, because it is something that we're learning. We've learned this through our conditioning, through society, through other people. And like I said, we all become victims of it, but also perpetrators of it. So I think that we do need to approach this with a sense of compassion. Having weight bias or noticing other people's weight bias is not necessarily something that we need to criticize them for. it's not something we necessarily need to criticize ourselves for. But I think probably the most important point there is that it is something that we have learned. So because we've learned it, it can be something that we unlearn, which is the good news. Steph. Steph says, I'm trying to run a business around health at every size and find myself constantly checking what we discuss and what we don't discuss about weight. It's easy to accidentally fall into into bad habits mentally yourself and thinking, I should lose weight just because it's what I've been trained by the media and society to feel that way. It's so ingrained. And Steph, I think what a beautiful message, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I think, I've been practicing in this space for probably 12 years now. And every now and then, if I'm honest, I notice my own weight bias popping up. And I think that popping up is not, I don't need to beat myself up about that. I don't need to think that I'm a bad person. But me being mindful allows me to then have that separation from that way of thinking and then make my own decisions. So yes, it will probably be something you'll constantly have to be mindful of. And it is definitely something that people in this space have to be mindful of, because it's so ingrained. It is so it's so ingrained, and it's so easy to fall into. I was doing a webinar for Mental Health Professionals Network, and there was a great non-dieting dietitian. There was myself as the psychologist. There was a great GP who specialised in diabetes, and there was a psychiatrist who specialises in eating disorders and actually writes is the editor of a big journal of eating disorders. So people who really do this weight management stuff, and we were talking about a particular case study, and we all thought for this person there was really no indication for them to lose weight. And it was surprising how after a little while we kind of just sidetracked, and the weight conversation started up, and the health at every size practitioner, the dietitian Fiona Sutherland, just said, "Hey guys, let's be mindful of what's just happened. We just kind of all derailed ourselves and started to focus on weight loss." So it is something I think we need to be constantly mindful of. Okay, I've been talking a lot. Guys, I think that's heaps and heaps for today. Like I said, what have we got here? We've got, if you want to get the full video that this little live video came from, the full video on the body image and relationships, that'll be out tomorrow. In my post here, there's a little email link so you can get that. And if anyone wants to go further down the rabbit hole of improving their body image, I would love you to think about joining our Love Your Body Healthy online program. So it actually starts this one on this Monday, October the 9th. And what I find in my sessions is that when I talk with people, I used to do some very structured work around body image, and then as I started to learn more, I started to have more conversations with people, and they were good conversations, but what I began to realise was that they actually weren't as useful for the person. So I went back and I developed a 6-session kind of program with my clients that supports them through boosting body image in a structured way, and it's worked really, really well. So then what we did is we turned the program into an online program. So it's 6 weeks, and we, in a very structured way, we support you to go through that work and really boost your body image in kind of the best way that we know how. It very much mimics a lot of what we do in the research trials that show an improved body image, what some of the world's leading experts do to improve body image, and then just my particular process, this 6-session program that I develop with people, and I'm obviously there to support you the whole way through it. Chrissy says, I'm a bit late, but Glenn, you've made my sense of body image great, so thank you. Oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. That's probably the last thing I want you to know about body image work, actually. There are a lot of barriers to actually truly becoming body positive. I say to people, it's like learning a language. It doesn't happen overnight, and that's why it's a really good thing to do some work with a psychologist who specialises in this area, or a program like our Love Your Body Healthy program. It does take a bit of work and a bit of practice, but I think that often people feel like, look, I can't really get there. I do have to lose a lot of weight, or I have to be quite thin, or I have to look like someone else, or I have to look like I looked 10 years ago to be happy in my body. And I really want you to know that changing your body image, because it is more about what's up here than is what's out here, that it very much is possible, and it's never going to harm your weight management. We know that people with better body image, they do less emotional eating, they feel more satisfied if they do lose some weight, because they can acknowledge it more and they feel like it means more. They're more likely to exercise, especially in public, and they're less likely to crash diet. So boosting your body image only helps you take better care of yourselves. Guys, that is tons and tons from me. Thank you for being with me. And I want you to just kind of reflect on those few points and see what is relevant to you to just start to destabilize that old body image and start to develop a new one. All right, thanks everyone.